Good afternoon and welcome once again to Fired Up. I'm Bob Irwin, your host for the show. We're broadcasting from the studios of the American Guns and Glory Network here in Las Vegas, Nevada. This show is about guns, related political issues, and self-defense issues. Fired Up is on our website, firedupwithbobirwin.com. A new show is posted every Thursday at around 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Daylight time, actually. We're in Standard Time.
Standard Time.
We're in Standard Time now, again. I just had relatives in from Arizona, and we're all messed up with the time. New shows also appear on YouTube, at least for a while so far, and numerous other media. The audio feed is rebroadcast for radio listeners Saturdays at noon on the Nevada Talk Network. That should be visible on your screen at the moment. You can look at KELY1230.com for a station in your area. If you have questions or comments, send an email to bob@firedupmail.com or leave a message on my home office recorder, 702-257-1060. If you leave contact information by email, text, or telephone, we will respond. Questions directly to our guest will be forwarded. In this case, today's guest has his own email. You can find him. If you can't, send it to me and I'll forward it. There are several hundred defensive uses of firearms every week in the United States. Good ones are rarely covered by any mainstream media, so we always present a few shooting cases for our listeners' education. Generally, they're good shootings. Some are questionable shootings. Sometimes they're poor shootings, but they're all educational to individuals who keep a firearm at home or carry one for self-defense. The idea is you can put yourself in the individual's place and see what he did right, what he did wrong, and how you could make it better if you were involved. The advice given here might not apply in your jurisdiction. The incidents are reported as as our policy is, but the names of the players, other than police chiefs and DAs and so forth, are omitted. My guest once again today is my friend, California and Nevada attorney, Donald J. Green. Don, a bit of your background, if you would.
Okay, thank you. Once again, Bob, thank you for having me on your show. My name is Don Green, and I'm a lawyer in California and Nevada, and this week I'm celebrating my 35th year of practice in California and Nevada. For your listeners and viewers, the emphasis of my practice is predominantly firearms and related issues with guns, not just representing individuals, but also representing federal firearms licensees, businesses involving firearms, gun shows, but focusing on the individuals who either want to use firearms for pleasure, they want to use firearms for work, or they want to carry firearms for self-defense, as Bob has pointed out. You're always welcome to call me. You can call me on my direct cellular at area code 702-409-8239, and I can give you information which is pertinent in California and Nevada. I'm not licensed in any other states, but as Bob has pointed out, we can put you in the right direction. Thank you.
Yeah. Over the time with this show, we have developed an incredible network of attorneys.
Yes.
All across the United States. So if you're in another state and you have a problem, we can direct you to a competent gun attorney in the United States, not a guy who does house mortgages and now he's going to try and defend you on some technical issue that is going to get him off in the weeds. This first story is from WKRN News 2. Reported Christmas Day, 12/25, in Antioch, Tennessee. A shooting incident happened around noon at a home on the 2800 block of Crestview Drive, if you know where that is. An individual showed up at the family's home, kicked his way in. Police reported the intruder was known to the family as he had fathered a son by the sister of a family member who was inside the home. You got that? This is right. This you'll see the point here when we get there. Neither the child or his child or the mother of his child was home when this guy arrived. The mother's mom, the child's grandmother, told the intruder to leave and began to put some of his belongings, which he had been storing there, on the front porch. He'd allegedly come to recover his belongings because he wasn't supposed to be around the family. There were protective orders and things issued and so forth. During that confrontation with the mom, two brothers, with the mother's mom, two brothers came up from a downstairs den and confronted the intruder. The intruder then punched one brother and walked back out to his car, saying he had something for them. The family was concerned he was going for a firearm. The intruder returned to the front. When the intruder returned to the front porch, one of the brothers fired a single shot, which hit the agitated intruder in the torso. The intruder then returned to his car. Responding officers found the intruder in the car, and they tried to revive him. Paramedics were called. Of course, they were not successful. He was pronounced dead at the scene. The police found no firearm in his vehicle or on his person. The shooter and his brother initially, I'll comment later. The shooter and his brother initially left the residence, but soon returned and surrendered the gun they had to the officers. Detectives will provide the results of their investigation when complete to the district attorney's office for a determination as to whether charges will be placed. Complicated relationships, but you got the idea. The woman and the child, his child allegedly, weren't in the home. He was storing stuff there. He came to get it. The confrontation happened with the brothers. In my opinion, this is a pretty clearly a good shooting. The perp was obviously warned, and he chose to move back toward the residence or toward the home. I think most residents in that position would have a reasonable belief that they were in danger of serious physical harm. There's a lot more complication here, so we're going to let the opinion that matters take over from here.
I'm going to take the opposite position, Bob. I think that the brother who fired the shot could be charged with attempted murder and murder now that the perpetrator is dead. The punch may or may not be viewed as something which causes great bodily injury or death by a reasonable jury. In Tennessee, it might be different. Now, remember that the perpetrator walked back to his car saying he had something for them. It could have been a Christmas present. We don't know. And this was on Christmas Day. His son is living in that residence for whatever reason. There's a number of family members. And the two brothers heard the commotion and came from a downstairs den upstairs to find out about the commotion. At that moment, was there a threat of great bodily injury or death to those two people? The answer is he punched one brother and walked to his car and said he had something. One of the brothers fired a single shot. So the issue then becomes, was that enough to present to a jury that, well, my client was in fear for his life or in fear for the lives of immediate family members, and that fear is based on the fact that his brother was punched and the perpetrator kicked his way into the house. Now, nowhere is it stated that the victim, who's the perpetrator, had any type of a weapon in his hands, in his vehicle, because none was found. So in California, this is a very questionable shooting. Yeah. In Nevada, it's probably 50-50, and the reviewing judge at a preliminary hearing where they bring in the initial police officers to testify about what happened, then the judge says, I think there's enough evidence to send this to a jury, and later a jury in district court. It's going to be 50-50, because in a very similar case which I had, the bad guy came to the house but brought a weapon and put the pistol underneath the pillows in the couch, unknown to my client. So when there was an argument inside and my client goes outside, then he sees the victim reaching in and pulling out what he believes to be a nickel-plated or a chrome-plated handgun, and shoots at into the body of the then victim, who he thought was the perpetrator. And this had been precipitated by a very heated argument. So in that case, it was like an imperfect self-defense. The defendant was convicted, but he was convicted because he refused to articulate on the stand an emotion of why he was in fear for his life, rather than just saying, I was fearing for my life, but not articulating it as he should have, as he was at first articulated to me in a number of meetings. I can say this because the man has suffered a conviction, is now on post-conviction relief. So in this case, that's why I disagree with you, Bob, only for the purposes of showing you the other side of the coin.
Oh, we feel free to disagree. Don and I have been in court a lot, and we're all victims of our background, and we have argued cases before, but that's the whole point of the show. It's not that Don and I agree on everything. We're not. It would be rather boring if we did every time. See, we've had some heated discussions off camera,
yes, we have,
over some of these cases, and that's fine. That's to tell you what happens in the legal system, because we're a microcosm of what happens in real court, with one side saying, well, this is rational, and I'm saying, the other side saying, no, that isn't rational, blah, 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 and we go on and on. It's an interesting case. We will, this case just happened. We will find out what the court system in Tennessee did with this, depending on what their local laws are, what their DAs, what their case law is in the area, and so on and so on. They get really complicated. This is from KCPQ Q13. That's long enough for you. It's called Fox Reports. It's on in Marysville, Washington. This took place on the day before Christmas, on Christmas Eve, or the day before, Christmas Eve. This is on 12/23 of 18 in any case. In Marysville, Washington. According to the Marysville PD, 2 shoplifters were leaving the Coastal Farm and Ranch store, which is located in the 9600 block of State Avenue, when several other citizens confronted them. As the thieves tried to leave the parking lot, at least 2 of the bystanders began shooting, apparently puncturing a couple of the tires on the getaway car. The suspect's car was found abandoned a few blocks away with 2 flat tires, according to police. The officers used a canine to track down the suspects, who were taken into custody without further incident. And in the details of the report, they had some of the stolen merchandise on them, and they had done shoplifting. The individuals who fired the shots left the scene before police arrived. Now, the story ends, this just happened, so we have no lot of details on it again. Police in Marysville are asking the armed bystanders who shot at the 2 suspecting shoplifters' car over the weekend to come forward and speak to investigators in order to get their statement. Okay. The shooting at a fleeing vehicle is unlawful everywhere in the United States, except in Texas, and that's a separate issue. That's why I try not to do Texas cases on this show unless they're really cool, because the laws are different with what you can do there. But anyway, shooting at a fleeing car, or a fleeing shoplifter, or a fleeing anybody that's not a threat to your life is always a problem. probably coming into the police department and explaining why you did that, you want to bring your attorney with you?
Yes.
If you're these perps, I expect from everybody's cell phones and video camera all over the place, you know, the store probably had cameras in it and so forth. They're going to figure out who it is anyway. So you need, you know, to get your attorney in tow and go talk to the police about that, I think. This is a really wacky case.
Right. Bob, you have probably taught several thousand people in concealed weapons classes that when you're going to use your weapon, whether it's concealed, whether it's open carry, I'm not sure about the law in Washington, but when you're faced with a situation where someone else you don't know is the victim of a crime, however violent, the best thing you can do is call 911, give a description of the perpetrators, maybe give a description of what's going on, and identify yourself as a good guy and say the black guy is wearing a blue shirt with a red striped tie and a gray jacket, similar to what Bob is wearing today. But I'm just saying an example. Well, that's the best thing you can do, because in this instance, at least two of the several bystanders start shooting for people that two shoplifters from the Coastal Farm and Ranch store. Now, I don't know what type of store that is. In Las Vegas area, we've got a California Farms Ranch store at 95 in the freeway, and they sell firearms in there. They sell horse feed, they sell saddles, they sell boots, just about anything you can imagine for an old hardware and feed and tax store. But the thing is, it doesn't matter. They are not faced with an incident of great bodily injury or death. And when they shot, regardless of their motivation, when they shot, they could have been charged with discharge of a firearm in an occupied area, discharge of a firearm into a moving vehicle, discharge of a firearm in a business district, discharge of a firearm where others may be hurt. Notice it's may be hurt, not that they could, not that they were hurt. So, in any event, this is this point that we have to make here.
Yeah, we're going to break for a set of commercials right now. And when we come back, Don Green is going to go over some of the upcoming changes, which are really dramatic in the gun laws here in Nevada, and some proposals under federal law that are going to be a disaster for most of us. If you want to stay tuned for that part. We'll be right back.
My name is Jerry Creed, and I'm a gun trust attorney. If you want to own an NFA firearm, a gun trust is a great way to own it because it allows multiple people to lawfully possess a firearm instead of just a single individual. I have reviewed lots of gun trusts, and I have found they often don't include the forms you need to bring people on as trustees and remove them as trustees. In addition, a gun trust will save you the cost of probate and avoid probate, and it can protect your executor and family members. You know, there isn't an element of intent in these laws that affect the NFA firearm possession. So it doesn't matter if your wife didn't intend to sell the gun at a garage sale or yard sale, or your daughter didn't intend to drive the car with the silencer in the trunk. A gun trust is a great way to protect your family members and friends and share in the fun and pleasure of owning NFA weapons. If you want a gun trust done right, remember to trust Jerry.
Hi, I'm Bob Irwin, and I get to do my own commercial. The short version is I've had 50 years experience in firearms, firearm repair, firearm design, 30,000 CCW holders I've personally taught, 20,000 security officers, etc. Taught in 28 police academies, firearms and use of force. I've also appeared more than 200 times in gun-related cases in federal, state, and local court. I wrote this book, The Reality of Armed Self-Defense, because it answers virtually all the questions that I get every time I talk to people, answers questions that come in the emails. It will tell you what you need to know to keep yourself out of prison if you get involved in a self-defense shooting case, keep from losing your house in a civil lawsuit. There are lots of things I've learned over these years and watched people make a lot of mistakes. This book will save you a lot. If you purchase one, read through it, I'm sure you will find it enlightening, and it'll save me a lot of time on these shows trying to explain to people what they did wrong and what they shouldn't have done and so forth and so on. So you can buy it by sending me the funds at the address below, bob@firedupmail.com, or leave a message on my phone number there, which is 702-257-1060. I will return your calls and tell you where to mail the money and so forth and so on. They're available on my website also, which is attached to this regular show. Cost is $15. I said add for postage if you live outside the immediate 50 states, and I will get it to you first class mail. Thank you for listening. This book will save you a lot of hassle. Thanks. And we are back. Attorney Don Green on upcoming gun laws. Happy 2019 to y'all.
Yes, well, I'm going to give the bad news and then potential good news. As far as the overall United States is concerned, we do know that just last week, the incoming Attorney General of the United States signed in what's called the bump stock ban. And that was on or about December 19th of 2018. And the regulation, which has been in question for some period of time, even preceding the October 2017 incident in Las Vegas, the ATF has been toying with this bump stock ban for some time. Now, please recall that the bump stock, which is used to facilitate the activation of the trigger mechanism, so it appears as if the weapon is firing multiple shots with a single press of the pulling of the trigger, but it's really not. It just allows the trigger to go further, but there's a hyper-technical definition which has been presented by the ATF to the Attorney General of the United States, and he's going to sign it. There's a regulation which has to go through the notice and comment period under the Federal Register for a period of 90 days, which means it wouldn't be until at least March 21st, 2019 before the effective date of the sale, the possession, or transfer of any bump stock. So it would be a federal offense. It's a federal crime literally created overnight. Not to be outdone, approximately 148 hours ago, a lawsuit was filed by a gun rights group in the federal court in Washington, D.C., which challenges the incoming Attorney General Matthew Whitaker's decision to outlaw bump stocks. It is the very early stages of that. I do not know whether the government of the United States has even responded to that particular court filing, which again was filed 148 hours ago. And remember that the original intent for the bump stock was to aid a disabled or a handicapped person to fire an AR-15 type weapon. But the Democrats, people who don't know anything about firearms, have perverted its use and characteristics into what they're considering to be a machine gun, which is exactly what Attorney General designate Whitaker has said, that it is now a machine gun and would require a special licensing or be prohibited altogether. and this is going to be included in some ATF rulings, which just came out last week. And those rulings are as that the bump stock would now be an illegal weapon because it constitutes the parts of or facilitates the creation of a machine gun, which requires special licensing and special background checks and special features and characteristics under the existing ATF regulations. That just came out a few days ago. So those rulings are subject to court challenges as well. As to Nevada, here's the bad news. The bad news is that the incoming governor, most of the members of the Nevada Assembly, most of the members of the Nevada Senate, and the current Attorney General of the state of Nevada are diehard anti-gun Democrats. There have been recommendations going on for the past 2 years through Democratic circles in the Nevada Senate and Assembly for the following: the banning of magazines which hold more than 10 rounds, the banning of all assault rifles, the expansion of the red flag law, which we already have under NRS 453, which is a 435, excuse me, which is where you're having someone who you believe is mentally incompetent and you send them to the hospital. It can be done by close family members or members of law enforcement or physicians or like a psychiatrist or a psychologist. But they want to perhaps expand that as it's done in California right now, and as was recently passed in a couple of other jurisdictions, whereby the firearms of that person would be taken automatically, and then once this person miraculously comes out of this craziness fog, he has to prove that he is no longer a danger to society and can use and possess these weapons without creating any further problems, which is going to be extremely difficult to do. Second, and this is very important for all of the concealed firearms owners holders in Nevada and those who are taking or who want to take a concealed weapons course. Don't be surprised if in this legislature that the Democrats in both houses in Nevada require good cause for the issuance of a concealed weapon, as it's done in California. If there is a good cause requirement, which leaves it to the total discretion of the sheriffs, that's probably going to eliminate probably 75 to 100,000 current CCWs, because under Nevada law, we are a shall issue state, which means 1, if you're over 21, 2, you take the required course, 3, you pass the background check and pay the fees, you get your CCW, even if you're not a resident of this state. Second, in California is a requirement for a psychological examination. So, would there also be, in addition to a good cause requirement, a clearance by a licensed psychologist or psychiatrist? Second, or next, there may be a modification of Nevada's open carry law. Now remember that in Nevada, we do not have a law which prohibits open carry, and we do not have a law which allows open carry. What we have is a statute under NRS 193, which says that where something is not prohibited, you can do the act, and that has been the subject of an Attorney General opinion, which is several years old, which allows Nevadans to open carry. We do not have a statute. We do not have a constitutional provision. And I can see Attorney General Ford, who, as of December 18th, 2018, in Nevada, says that he is going to look at and revamp Nevada's firearms laws. Second, background checks. Please recall that in Nevada, the Nevada legislature, the Nevadans passed Proposition 1 to require a number of background checks for all sales of firearms, including all private sales. That law became effective on November 7th of 2016, but the enforcement of that was halted on December 28th of 2016 by then Attorney General Laxalt's opinion, which says that based upon the FBI, not Nevada, but based upon the FBI's refusal to allow these types of background checks envisioned by Proposition 1. Therefore, the enforcement of Proposition 1 could not happen, and Nevadans are not required to perform or to be subject to an impossible act, and therefore, under common law principles, as pointed out very eloquently by the senior staff members of Attorney General Laxalt's team, this law was therefore unenforceable. Now, Attorney General-elect Aaron Ford has said that he's going to take a look at that. He's going to see if there's a way around it. There is no way around it, because either the FBI is going to approve it or it's not. And in its current form and fashion, allowing the direct contact between the federal firearms licensee and the FBI, that can't be done under Nevada's point of contact system. So we may see that. Second, as is going on in California right now, there may be some ammunition restrictions and possibly some other restrictions.
A lot of stuff. We will have a lot more information on this when we see you all at the next gun show, which will be out at the Santa Fe in a couple of weeks from the time this is broadcast. Lots of stuff. We're going to have to do another show
Quite
on this
right.
because there's a whole gamut of things on that bump stock that just need going over. We will be back for our next show next Thursday. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good evening.
Thank you.